Welcome to the ninth episode of the series Decolonizing the Mind. Today I will talk about the following topics. I'll discuss the feedback that I got from different people. I'll discuss the rise of China and the multipolar world, its relation with Western Asia, and its relation with Palestine. There was a command on the videos, the YouTube videos, on a different analysis of Turkey. I welcome these commands. It's about sharing ideas, so I encourage people to come up with their critique of the analysis so that we have multiple perspectives of how to look at the events in Western Asia developing now. And also, I'm doing now a series of countries. How does it relate to the DTM series? Now, initially, the idea was to explain the different chapters and paragraphs of the book Decolonizing the Mind. But now with the invasion in Gaza and the possibility that this might develop into a regional and maybe global war, I decided to focus the initial series on understanding what's going on in Western Asia from a perspective of decolonizing the mind. So I take into account what is the positions of the different players in Western Asia. And I obviously I started with the resistance, the attack by Hamas and the other resistance groups on October 7th, the Israeli response, the nuclear threat that is coming out of this war, and then goes into the different countries and players, Hezbollah, Iran, Turkey, Russia. Today I'm doing China, I'm going to do India, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Europe, and Asia, and basically position the different parties in this conflict. And when I will analyze the events unfolding in the coming weeks and months, that's the framework I will use. So today we go to China. And specifically how China became a global player and its role in Western Asia and Palestine. Now, China sees itself not as a country that just came into existence after the Communist Revolution, and more we see it. They themselves regard themselves as a 3,500 years old civilization that began in 1600 before Common Era with the first dynasty, the Shang dynasty, and you had successive dynasty during 3,500 years, ending in 1911 with the Shanghai Revolution, leading to the Republic of China, the Declaration of the Republic of China by Sun Yat-sen, the first president. A year later, the Emperor of China formally abdicated, and first revolution, the Shanghai Revolution, was basically a liberal revolution, and the Communist Party, that was established early in the 20th century, organized a guerrilla peasant war led by the Communist Party, and eventually it led to the proclamation of the People's Republic of China on October 1, 1949. In my analysis of the development of Communist China, I distinguish three phases, and I don't see this coming in other analysis, but it's important. One is the Mao Zedong era, which is focusing on the central plan economy, nationalizing means of production, setting up a plan economy with two big failures, Great Leap Forward and Cultural Revolution, I explained that extensively in the book, where economic failures and political failures led to the death of millions of people in China. Then you get the period, the phase of Deng Xiaoping from 1979 and his successor up to 2012 before Xi Jinping, which was aimed at establishing a socialist market economy, meaning that capitalists were invited to develop the economy in cooperation with the state, but the state didn't look after capitalists, they looked after people. The main focus was how to lift people out of poverty and how to create a prosperous China with the help of capitalists, their entrepreneurial skills, capital, etc. And the foreign policy during Deng Xiaoping was a low profile policy, didn't engage with the superpowers and focus on Chinese development. And then come the era of Xi Jinping. And he positions the building of the Chinese economy with the global world economy. So China will grow not only through internal growth, but also through external world growth. So it's not about inviting foreign companies to invest in China. It's also about Chinese companies investing outside and the Chinese state. And the Belt and Road Initiative is a major initiative in this regard. And in doing this, China is basically an economic competitor and later on also a political competitor of the USA. And what is important now is that Xi Jinping introduces a new thing, which is the rejuvenating of the Chinese civilization, making it younger again, a young, vibrant Chinese civilization. He takes the concept of civilizations and organizes conferences on dialogues of civilizations. So these are the three approaches. What is the result of Deng Xiaoping's policy and afterwards? It's amazing. 800 million people have been lifted out of poverty. I'll spend a future video explaining how this was done and how it was different, for example, of another big country, India, who also have uplifted millions, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, less than China, but still a lot, and how those policies were different from the Chinese policies. And the most amazing thing is that in around 2020, China overtook the United States as the largest economy of the world. And the largest economy of the world is then measured in something called the GDP PPP. GDP is gross domestic product and PPP is purchasing power parity. It means that if you measure an economy, how big it is, then you use an international dollar that has the same purchasing power as the US dollars in the United States. So it makes the comparison more realistic. China's economy measured in those dollars was $27 trillion. And the United States was $23 trillion. So China overtook in 2020, 21, the United States as the biggest economy of the world, which is major in world history. The European economy, all the European nations, the 27 European nations together have a GDP PPP of 22 trillion, China 27. India has 1/3 of the GDP PPP of China, which is 10 trillion, Russia 5, and Brazil 3. So it shows you that China is really a strong economy. And to understand the strength of the economy, you have to understand its technological base. The strength is not based on, during the Deng Xiaoping era, the early era, it was basically the factory of the world. And Chinese quality was regarded as low quality. Different now. The technological base of China is immense. It grows immense in all major sectors of technology. They have now an aerospace station. And the only one that is there is an old one from NASA, together with Russia and other countries, Europe. But now they have their own aerospace station, which is more modern than the old one of NASA. They have a semiconductors industry, which is growing very fast. And semiconductors industry is the industry that produces the chips for everything that is chip related, the telephone, the computers, whatever you have. They have already 6G internet. And while in Europe and in United States they are struggling with 4 and 5G, they already are higher. Artificial intelligence is growing at a huge pace in China. And even in fundamental physics research, they are building CERN in Switzerland is an institute for fundamental physics research. It has been there, and China is building one that is larger, much larger than the CERN, which is the Large Hadron Collider. They have high-speed railways expanding all over China. And they are the biggest economy, 27 trillion in the world. So for every other country who thinks they can boycott China, they will hurt themselves. Australia boycotted China on the pressure of the US, and now the Albany, the Prime Minister of Australia, is visiting China because they are so hurt by the stop of exports to China of wine and other products. The industry has been badly beaten by the boycott themselves. They try to recover from it by re-establishing relations with China. And so does Germany, who acknowledged that China is, for them, one of the biggest economic partners. And boycotting China is not a good idea. Now, what about Western Asia? Western Asia is important for China because of oil. The Chinese economy needs oil. China is related to Western Asia because also of the problem of the Uyghur Muslims, where terrorist attacks or armed attacks by Uyghur Muslims led to a very harsh response of the Chinese government with mass internment. And China has to deal with how do we deal with the Muslims in China, and hoping that relations with Western Asia can lead to a better relations with the Uyghur Muslims is one of their aims. And then in 2001, Russia and China established the Shanghai Cooperation Organization that deals with security and terrorism. And now India is involved and Iran is involved in that cooperation, security cooperation. So China is really looking into Western Asia and Islam and different groups to see how to solve security problems. And then you have the economic cooperation, which originally was Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and now includes Iran and Saudi Arabia, Western Asia. And BRICS is about economic cooperation. And very important is that China and Iran has established a deal, a 25-year cooperation program in which China invests 400 billion in Iran in exchange for oil. These are very important developments to understand Chinese position regarding Western Asia. Now, the formal position of China on Palestine is two-state solution. But now the two-state solution is dead, basically. It means that they are saying to Netanyahu, you don't have a solution. And we take the formula of the two-state solution, it's basically going against your policy. So Netanyahu cannot count on support of China in the struggle against Hamas. China had traditional relations with PLO, and they characterize now Hamas in the official statement as the elected representative of Palestinian people, not as a terrorist organization. And I mentioned yesterday how one of the Hamas officials announced that Hamas will pay a visit to China. Now, so the conclusion is this: in the ongoing and expanding regional war now going on in Western Asia, China is not on the side of the USA. It's not on the side of Israel. The genocide has resulted in 10,000 people killed, over 10,000 people killed as of today. And we see the gradual expansion. Yemen yesterday had large-scale drone attacks against what they call sensitive targets in Israel, airports, and it's not clear what the effect of it was. But even, if it had no effect and the Iron Dome succeeded in taking on those drones, it tells you that there is a expansion of the war. Israel has struck Lebanon 2 days ago, killed 3 civilians, and Hezbollah responded with rocket attacks in Israel. Antony Blinken went to Turkey, was not received by Erdogan, but was received by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And when the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs went to Turkey, he met both with his counterpart and with Erdogan himself. Erdogan is preparing for war. Iran and the Axis of Resistance have established recently joint operation rooms to coordinate the actions in Gaza, West Bank, Hezbollah, Iraq, and possibly other parties. And for the first time a few days ago, the N-word was uttered by Israeli Heritage Minister Eliyahu, who suggested that Tel Aviv could launch a nuclear strike on Gaza. And an important speech was made by Putin a few days ago. And Putin explained the relationship between Ukraine and Palestine. Putin says the fate of Russia, the fate of the whole world, including that of Palestine, remember, including that of Palestine, is being decided in Ukraine. The fight in the world is between the US elite and Russia, and Putin sees the US as the hand behind the wars in Gaza and in Ukraine. And Putin is saying, if we finally defeat Ukraine, we defeat the US in one part of the world. And that will help defeat US in other part of the world. Now, this is an important statement that he made 2 days ago. So next episode tomorrow, I'll look into the role of India, how anti-colonialism in India, the secular and the religious, impacted India's stance in the world, Hindutva and Islamophobia, India and the multipolar world, India and Palestine. I deal with China in my book in 3 paragraphs, the chapter on economics, the chapter on world history, and the chapter on future world civilization. There are 3 paragraphs dealing with the experience of China, economic experience, the Chinese narrative of civilization, and the US stance on China. You can download this PDF from my website, www.sandohira.com. And if you want to support the DTM channel, subscribe to the channel in YouTube, share it with friends, families, and colleagues, and encourage them to subscribe, get involved in discussion groups, and make a donation if you can, and look at sandohira.com on how to do it. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you